All right, guys, how's everybody doing today? I hope amazing. It has been, quite a week, and I know that there's a lot going on, and so I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you being very serious about your business and what you can do to continue to grow. Today, we're going to talk about sales as it pertains to a real estate agent, and yet my hope is that if you're jumping into this class, you understand that what we cover today is absolutely 100% possible to bleed into any industry, because we're going to talk about the overall concepts of what it looks like when we have our conversations, what it looks like to understand disc personalities, to understand building rapport, a few things about language basics. And those things are standard across regardless of what industry you are as a sales individual. My examples will more than likely be coming from a space of real estate, though. Like my examples will be real estate. So again, hope everybody's doing great. If you need to, you want to, by all means, let me know that you're here. You can say something in the chat. If you haven't subscribed to us before, I'm going to encourage you and ask you to do that. I do these things all the time. We'll continue to do them for a very, very long time. I enjoy teaching and training. And so let's jump into it. So this is a class that I put together specifically because as I looked at, good morning, Crystal, as I looked at the things that were the biggest challenge for real estate agents getting into the business is that most of them are very charismatic individuals that come from some really cool business spaces, right? They're really phenomenal people with a lot of ambition, a lot of angst to do really well in the industry. Now, the biggest challenge, though, is that when you look at what's happening is that people are moving and shifting usually from a very specific industry into real estate that didn't have the sales skill side of things. And so sales is something that is a very skilled and it's a professional job. It's a professional career. And yet if we jump into it without having training on it as a profession, it can get very taxing on us emotionally, personally, physically, and even mentally if we're really trying to do sales and don't understand even just the basics of what we can do to be the best that we can be in sales. So this is going to be a best practices kind of conversation. So let's just jump into it today. The very first thing that I want to have a conversation about. So if we're going to go through and we're going to have conversations about the basics, let's talk about what the basics look like. For me, I look at the basics very first is coming into this space and understanding. And this is a borrowed concept. This is not Randy's. This is actually, I learned it in Bold. I'm sure that there's a programming kind of process thought that is in other spaces. And yet this is where I learned it. And so I give credit back where it was due. Programming leads to thinking. Thinking leads to feelings. Feelings leads to our actions, and our actions lead to results. And the reality is, if we look at this cycle, so often we get into what we're doing as sales professionals, and many people have this version of the story for a sales professional that is more along the lines of, I don't want to be this like used car salesman kind of personality. I don't want to go out there and I don't want to talk to my friends about it because I don't want to sound salesy. And so we have this immediately this almost different category for a salesperson that we've all experienced, and we call that person the person we don't want to be. Now, mentally, the challenge is that we have attached sales to that kind of personality in our own brains, and we just say, oh, well, I don't want to be that. Unfortunately, our attraction is going to be in that direction. If that's our only version of the story, then our thinking will lead to our feelings, right? And so we've got to really begin to reframe our mindset on this. And so that's why I really start with this. And the basics of the sales side of things, programming leads to thinking. Thinking leads to feeling. Feeling leads to action. Action leads to results. So if our thinking is already in this space of salespeople are kind of like this pushy, moving me into a space I don't really want to be, well, then we are in that category. That's a profession that we've chosen. So we're in that category. So we have to adjust our thinking to go, no, a salesperson is an advocate, and an advocate in a huge way. They make sure that people understand the path to what they desire. And when we look at that, we think the feeling of being an advocate is very strong. And so if I feel like an advocate, I will then act like an advocate. And the reality is that when I act like an advocate, my results are going to come in that are going to show the consumer I'm an advocate. They're going to see me as an advocate. The results are going to look like an advocate. And now my programming the results lead to my programming, comes all the way back around, is that now I'm programmed as an advocate. And so sales to me is now synonymous with an advocate. It is a professional outlook. And so this is something that we have to start with. And I would encourage you, regardless of where you're at in the process of your sales career, begin to think about this. As soon as something comes up that you don't want to be, make sure you reframe that into the positive sense and get your thinking in the right spaces, because your thinking will honestly lead to your feelings. Just think about, as you've developed any kind of relationship, it usually starts in the thinking process that then goes into the feelings, and the feelings then lead to the actions, right? And the actions are going to lead to the results, if they're good or bad. And that good or bad is then going to go back into the programming stage of things. And so you've got to understand that if that is true, then I need to believe in the results now. So my thinking, I need to actually look forward, cast out the results that I want, and I need to be thinking that way. And when I program my thinking in that way, it will all end up going in the right direction. And so that's my very first thing, is to make sure that you're moving in all of these things into a positive space. Okay, so let's talk about the basics. When I think about building rapport, the very first thing that I'm going to look at in a rapport building is going to be understanding personality and behavioral traits. Now, the easiest space to be able to dig into this is going to be in the DISC, D-I-S-C, and we're going to go through those personalities. It's the easiest place to be able to group behaviors, so I understand how to interact with those behaviors in building rapport. And obviously we know that rapport is a connection that we have with whoever it is that we're talking to, or whoever it is that we're with. So in the rapport side of things, DISC behavior is just the easiest for us to dig into. Now, obviously there's a lot of simple and complicated behavioral traits, right? So you've got strengths finders, which is kind of a little bit of a behavioral trait thing that you can do, and you can look into strengths finder. Enneagram, which is a really popular, it's a very pop culture thing right now. It's an ancient kind of conversation, but it's very popular right now with the Enneagrams. Keller Williams, they use a KPA, Keller Personality Assessment, to be able to go through and understand all that. So there's a lot of different ones that are out there. My encouragement is just to use one and stick with it, so that then like the consistency of what you're doing is really framed into that space. Because if we want to, we can use all of them, and then all of them have a little bit different variation. And then as we're digging in and really finding our systems, all of those variations can cause some challenges for us to understand what we're doing with and how we can build rapport. So the way that I look at the DISC, and in sales, the very first thing that I look at in understanding the sales concept is I want to know what the fears are on the other side of the table, because usually that's where the opportunity is going to be for me to create a value proposition to help them understand how I can make sure I am helping them in that space. And so we're going to look at and understand the DISC personalities as it pertains mostly to the fear side of things. So the very first is your high D, and it stands for dominance, and their biggest fear is being taken advantage of. And so I'm going to read this little paragraph for you guys in case it's too small on your screen. It says, the hallmark of a high D are quick decisions, direct answers, and a competitive atmosphere. This personality values solid results and powerful growth. Trust is given to those who are direct and straightforward. People who thrive in this setting tend to be hard-driving individuals who relish challenges and the thrill of victory. Interpersonal communication may suffer in this culture, however, and those who are less assertive may feel overwhelmed. And so that's a high D, and we've all had high Ds in our life. We all have high Ds in our life currently. And I want you to really dig into that, though. The fear for a high D is being taken advantage of. How many times have you walked into a situation to where you are the sales professional, you're sitting across from a high D personality, and as you begin to have the conversation, most of us want to take control from a high D. That's just a natural response, is that if we're really looking and learning from the history of sales, we're going to go into that situation, we're going to want to be able to take control. When we take control in the wrong way to sound like we are the expert, we're the one that's going to win, often our language will begin to start pushing back on a high D, because they're going to fear this being taken advantage of. And so in a high D scenario, what would be the best thing to do when you're going in to have a conversation with them is to understand, like, well, how are their behavior traits, so that then rapport can make it look as if I am not taking advantage of them and I'm involving them in the conversation and allowing them their strengths to come to the table, so that then I can actually be in control of the conversation. Now, not controlling, but I can be in control of the conversation. And obviously that through questions, which we'll cover in another session. So if I look at the hallmarks of a high D, if they're about quick decisions, direct answers, and competitive atmosphere, and I walk in and I'm going to start crafting this huge long story of why I'm the best real estate agent in the world, I'm going to lose my ability to connect and to have rapport with the high D, because they don't need the story, they need the bullet points. They're not going to read the book, they'll watch the movie. And so you've got to understand that. So if I'm on the phone with somebody and I start sensing that they have this high D personality, and I'm doing my pre-qualifications, and I walk into this meeting to be able to have, my ability to do my presentation for whatever sales venue we're in, like, right? It doesn't matter if you're in real estate or whatever else that you're selling. If I'm on the phone and I understand that they're a high D, and I walk in with this great, beautiful, drawn out 48 slide presentation about the story of how I can change their world, they're going to be lost. And in that process, trust is going to be broken, rapport is going to be broken. It's going to be really hard to close the deal. And so for a high D, you've got to be able to know and understand that when I am dealing with a high D in sales, their biggest fear is being taken advantage of. Am I using language that sounds like they are going to be out of control, and then in that space feel like they're being taken advantage of? Or am I using language that is in alignment to what they feel so that I can keep the direction moving forward? High D personality. There's much more that we could dig into that. My biggest thing is that when you walk in, you've got to understand their behavior and how they absorb and take information, and to be able to utilize that. So if this screen is big enough, by all means, guys, I'm going to put it up real quick. You can screenshot this or you can pause it. You can even Google this sort of thing. So don't look at me to be the expert, or this class to even be the expert. But understanding disc personalities is a really big piece to the puzzle. Okay. So then we got our high Ds. We also got our high Is. I don't know if you know this or not, but I'm a high I. This personality profile is about influence. Their biggest fear is rejection. There's a lot of agents who are in this space. Their biggest fear is rejection. There's a lot of high Is, or an I, in the space of their disc personality profile. The hallmark of a high I are an energetic atmosphere, an optimistic approach, and plenty of time spent in meetings or socializing. This personality values effective teamwork and creative approaches to problems. Trust is given to those who are open and expressive. People who excel in this setting tend to be charismatic individuals with a keen social skills. However, those who aren't as people-oriented may be frustrated with the emphasis on group activities and social necessities. Okay, so now obviously this person is a highly social being. If I'm on the phone and I can start picking up that this person is going to be a very high personality, well, I need to make sure that my presentation is curved to this. If you listen to some of the things that this person values, effective teamwork, creative approaches to problems, they want to feel part of it. If everything that I do sounds as if I'm just going to be doing this to you or for you, they're going to start to feel a little bit of disassociation with the rapport. This person is going to want to hear a little bit more of the story. They're going to want to understand how they're interacted with it. They're going to want to feel part of it, not just a pawn in the puzzle. Okay, a lot of alliteration there. And so if their biggest fear is rejection, am I using language that allows them to be part of the conversation? Am I being inclusive in my language? Am I telling them how or what to do? Or am I allowing them to be part of the space? This is a really important. If you think about it, if I'm going in and I want to create the best case scenario for me to have a conversation that helps the process move forward so that I can be a true advocate, then I need to understand what this looks like, and I understand who they are. The other side that I immediately think about, because a high I is me, I don't even know if that's proper grammar. If this is me, and you can pick out your personality profile, and I walk into a high D and I start doing my personality, it's going to be really hard for me to get into rapport. Rapport is about mirroring and matching the people who are across from me. So if I know that they're a high D, I need to act and I need to be a high D until rapport is built, and then we can relax into our natural inclinations. Okay? If I'm a high D and I go in and I start railroading a high I, it's going to be a challenge for me to be able to create connections. Now, this is just great knowledge for sales and or if you're a leader in general. If you're a high D leader and you walk into a room full of I's and you start bullet pointing and they can't connect to the story, I don't know that they understand your purpose and your profile of what you want to do to move forward. So again, high I's. Now, the biggest challenge with the high I that you got to watch out for is your high I's. They will always want to tell more and talk more. Ask questions that can keep the things moving forward and be directed. So your high I's will they'll tend to sidetrack the conversations a bit. So you just got to know how to pull those things back together. Okay. All right. So your high I's. We're going to go into our high S's. Now, here's the deal with the high S's. I want you to really pay attention to this. Our S's are absolutely the majority of the world that's out there. S's are the most popular behavioral trait. And I want to read this and I want to spend a little bit of time understanding this. Their fear is loss of security or trust. And so the hallmark of a high S are stability, predictability, and friendliness. I want to read that again. Predictability, friendliness, and stability. I have to be a friend. I have to show that there's stability in the conversation, and I have to make sure that it's predictable. I really want you to think about this. Is your listing presentation, your buyer presentation, or whatever presentation you're bringing into the space for your value proposition, sales call, whatever you want to call it. If I'm going in, is it built so that if the majority of the people are S's, can I have it crafted to be these three things: stable, predictable, and friendly? And the way that I look at it is, if anybody ever asks me a question, I need to be able to immediately answer with a confident either answer and or resource. I don't need to babble anything. I need to be able to know how I can answer that question and maybe even get into the resource while I'm in front of them. That would be able to create a lot of great opportunity for you. Predictability is a big thing with our behavior as we interact with the client. If we, because of our anxiety and anticipation for sales, get into this process of when we have a high S in front of us, if we answer our phone call at 10 a.m., their expectation is that then the predictability, right? You'll answer at 10 a.m., which that's fine. Most of us during business hours would. The challenge comes when we begin to give them in the beginning what they want. And as we build the relationship, we think, okay, cool. So they understand that I'm for them, but I don't answer calls after 7 p.m. I did that one time just to make sure that what you've done is you've created the space where for them to be understanding what's happening. It's a predictability moment. You should answer your phone call at every day at 7 p.m. So setting a standard is a really high space of that predictability. Again, you can be in control without being controlling by setting the expectations and the guidelines for how the process is going to go. So it's just really important. And the stability side is that you have to be able to have the confidence when you walk in. So the way you have your confidence is to do your homework. Nothing more to really be said about that. Do your homework, understand the market, understand what's happening, understand your product, understand their needs, understand your solutions, understand how they can be a hero in the process. If you have all those things lined up, you'll do flyingly well with these guys. This personality values strong teamwork and a manageable work-life balance. Trust is given to those who are sincere and considerate. People who thrive in this setting tend to avoid conflict and include everyone in the group's victories. People in this culture naturally support each other and rely on a systematic approach to work. However, such culture may lag in innovation or in its willingness to take bold challenges. Understand this. In sales, true or false, and the answer is true, by the way, it's a loaded question. A lot of what we do is fixing things as they break. That's the beautiful thing about a salesperson. We are a solution-based profession. A lot of times that is a creative process. A lot of times that is a discovery process. And a lot of times that is a bold process. We have to understand if we're sitting across from our client and they're an S, and we start taking and speaking in these bold terms, it is going to become a cloud over our ability to be in rapport with them. And it is going to be a challenge for them to be able to reconnect with you and understand how they're going to be part of this process, or are you going to railroad them through the whole thing? If their biggest fear is loss of security or trust, and you begin to take over in a way that puts them in the back seat, that feels less secure, that feels less trusting, and you're going to begin to break rapport. So when things happen and you know there's going to have to be a ramp up for finding a solution, the best place to start, I'm going to say it again, is going to be questions. So when we start in that question space with them, we're inviting them into the process, and then our solution can be brought via questions. Well, what would you think about if we did X, Y, and Z? Or do you think X or D, E, and F would be better? Now we're involving them to help them understand. A lot of data really helps you out through the homework process. They don't need the data. They just need to know that the predictability of what you're doing is there, the stability of what you're doing is there, and that the friendliness is there. It's really important to have the friendliness. It's not social like the I, it's friendly. It's a little different level. It's a relationship piece to it. Okay? All right, guys. So there we go, our high S's. Now we're going to be into our high C's, our conscientious person. Easy for you to say. Their fear is being wrong or criticized. All right? So the hallmarks of a C are equality, accuracy, and order. Such personalities value high standards, careful analysis, and diplomacy. This group prides itself on getting the perfect results. The group is cynical towards new ideas, and trust usually is earned. High C's are often loyal, but only to those who they respect. The personality values punctual, hardworking, and dependable people. The group, however, may miss opportunities because it spends so much time researching and analyzing. It may resist growth or fear of lowering its standards. We've all heard the idea of analysis paralysis. This is your analysis paralysis group. These are going to be the people who want to analyze and then overanalyze. They're the ones who already did their homework, and they want you to bring your homework, and they look at your homework and they compare them, and then they want to ask you about two other things. And then as they're asking you about two other things, a couple questions pop in their brain that they're like, well, what about these things? Do you have any data on this? And the whole time, all they're really building is a case so that they are not wrong, or that they cannot be criticized, because if that's their greatest fear, that's the thing that they want to avoid. They want to move away from that space. And so if I'm coming into it as this great sales advocate for them, and as a professional, I have to be ready, willing, and able to listen and guide and direct the conversations in a way that shows them that I respect the angle that they're coming from, so that I can get respect in return, and in the process actually help them, again, be an advocate for them. Your C's are going to be real easy. You've got to do your research for your C's. And I say easy in the sense that we don't have to put as much of the feelings into it as we do with the I's or with the S's. But we have to do our homework with our C's. In the same way with our D's. But the C's need to, the C's need to see it in they need to see it in a way that they can understand it. They need to see it in a way that makes sense to them. Very mathematical minded. So if you can really engineer the process, then they're gonna understand it. Now here's the beautiful thing about this, guys, and I hope you're watching this, and I hope you're thinking about this. If I'm really looking into each of these personality styles, I can actually be a chameleon in the way in which I bring my presentations. Could I easily make a bullet point? Yeah. Could I easily tell a 30-second story? Yeah, I can. So that then now I've satisfied the D and the I that might be sitting in the room. Can I easily bring a data sheet or some sort of data that would help solidify my story and help bring life to my bullet points? Absolutely. Can I create a friendly atmosphere? Can I create stability or predictability in it? Can I show that who I am is consistent across the whole? Yeah, I can do all of those things within my presentation. And if I have those elements as I go into it, I know which elements I spend longer time on. I know which elements I don't have to spend as much time on. I know how I can blow past the slide that says, here's the great story about who we are. And I'm thinking about right now, it just flashed into my head. I sat into a sales presentation one time when I was in oil and gas, and we're in front of a bunch of engineers that literally, if you are or have ever been in oil and gas, if you sit in front of an engineer and you start telling a story, you're done. You're toast. Engineers are like, I've got literally 5 seconds and I've timed it out, 5 minutes. I've timed it out by the second. So you're on the clock, buddy. So your 12-minute story about your vacation is pointless. Now I literally sat in a listing presentation. It was a sales presentation for a product that I was selling in oil and gas, and another guy that was on our team began to show a slideshow about his vacation to engineers who had an hour to spend with us to understand well data. It's like that's the wrong space. Like, it's just not there. So we've got to understand who's sitting across from us so that we can build a rapport. Okay. And again, going back through this real quick, we've got our D's, fear of being taken advantage of. We got our I's, the fear of rejection. We've got our S's, which is a fear of loss or security or trust. And we got our C's, which is a fear of being wrong or criticized. So, all right. There we go. Our next thing that we're going to really dig into is going to be understanding a little bit of what learning styles look like, right? So we talked about behavioral, but we really need to understand learning styles as well. A visual learning style. And all of this is super important. If you're in a space to build rapport, you need to be able to listen to what they say, how they act, and be able to regurgitate that, because we want to be around people who are most like us. That is about building rapport. So if I'm in a space where I find somebody who their learning style is visual, they're going to be a seeing or reading. Their biggest things are going to be seeing and reading. So if I brought a whole picture book, really is going to be great for them, but I've got to be able to understand, like, how am I going to make sure that this is all crafted to be even in their language? If I am an audio or an audible learner and I repeat the phrase a lot, which a lot of us do, and say like, um, can you hear what I say? Can you hear that? We use audio clues for the way that we're connecting to information. It's going to be a challenge. We've got to be able to use theirs. So if we understand and see that they're visual really fast, and the way a really cool telltale sign is that this person is always going to look up. So that's how you're going to be able to tell that they're going to be in that space. They look up. Use the word, I see what you mean. If we use a phrase like, oh, I see what you mean. I see what you mean. Listen to how they're even saying it. They may even say something different, but it's going to be a visual cue. So learning styles are really important. And if their learning style, and really if I'm doing a consultation, there's a bit of learning that's happening, I should understand what's happening via their learning style and speak in a way that's in line with their learning style. I should be bringing my content in line to their learning style, okay? Auditory, listening and speaking. So they're listening and speaking. I hear you. This personality can be slightly challenging as we sit across from them, because they will more than likely mouth words that you say. The ones who are really high, like acute auditory, will literally mouth your words in tune with you. They will watch your mouth and they will move their mouth with you. Now, here's one of the best things in the world. If you really want to understand, am I in rapport with somebody, and this is that type of learner, and they start mouthing and then all of a sudden they stop, rapport is broken. That is a physical output of, I have broken rapport with you. If they're auditory and they have stopped mouthing the words, you may think, oh, good, now I can keep going. Well, in reality, your rapport is broken and you've lost your ability to connect with them, okay? Same thing with the visual person. If the visual person starts looking beyond you, around you, or through you, you've probably lost rapport. They're going to be okay with connecting back and forth to you. But as you lose rapport, as you've broken rapport or attention, they're going to go off. And I know this because that's me. Okay, you're kinesthetic, touching and doing. So I get that. They doodle or they fidget. This person is going to be why you want to bring something for somebody to write on, or a pen. Those who don't need it won't use it. Those who need it will use it. I don't even think it's bad if you bring some sort of like little like stress ball or something that you had on the table, and you don't even necessarily have to give it to them. If you place it near them enough, they're going to be understand it, like that's something for me. They may place it and fidget with it. Your biggest thing here is our own little pet peeves of this person is usually when they're doing something that's creating a noise. They're tapping a lot, they're shaking their leg, they're doing this a lot, they're moving a lot, they're shuffling things a lot. It'll be highly distracting. You have to be able to get into your own brain and say, like, this is not going to be distracting, and don't let it distract you. So you've got to train, you've got to practice this, practice and role play this. But the reality is that, like, when you're looking at the person who is that kinesthetic person, they are gaining information as they're doing something. One of the gals that works with us, Brandy, she is absolutely a kinesthetic. You would sit in a meeting and think you're boring her brains out, and you're not. She's a doodler. She will draw and draw and draw, and she absorbs so much more information when we allow her the space. I say allow her like I wouldn't do it. When she has the space to be able to do that. If she was sitting in a very cold, dark room that didn't allow her to doodle while she was doing what she needed to do, or it's just a presentation that was just going and going and going, she would be lost. But give her the ability to physically move in the learning experience, and she's brilliant. She gets it. She runs with it. Okay. Sorry, going back here. So we've got our video, visual, audio, kinesthetic. Now there's a couple other learning based kind of space that you can get into. These are the key elements though, and so I really just want to stay in tune with the key ones, which is why I'm using the disc, because it's 4 personalities that we can learn, 4 things that we can master. And then the learning styles, there's only 3 things that we need to see, 3 things that we can master. My goal is to make it an overly simplified process that as you grow as a salesperson, you can add in all of the things that you want, but our basic ability to be able to understand a sales consultative process is to be able to understand the basic elements of a sales moment, like what is going to be happening when I sit across from somebody to build rapport. Okay? Awesome. And I know we're blowing through these things. You're welcome to pause, go back, dig into this. But I am going to be running through this next portion pretty quickly. So if you have any questions or comments, by all means, guys, toss them in there. If you're watching the recording of this video, put your comments in there. We monitor this all the time so we can get back to people. I love this. And you can even see down there, scrolling my email there, mvv@randyolive.com. You're welcome to email that at any point as well. Okay. All right, guys. We're going to take a look at rapport spot checking so that we can really understand when we break rapport, it's going to be really, really important to pay attention to. And we've got to get back into rapport. One of the easiest things that we can do is to be able to mirror and match what's happening in front of us. Okay. So that's rate of speech. If you're a very slow talker and the person in front of you is a very fast talker, then you're going to have to speed up your rate of speech, which is going to feel weird for you. The beautiful thing is that once you are in rapport, and you'll feel it, you'll know that you're in rapport, you can actually slow back down. You can get into your natural space. But I will tell you, if you are a fast talker, it's usually harder on the other end of it. If I speak really fast and the person speaking in front of me is really slow speaking, here's usually what we are doing. And it looks as if we're saying, shut up or finish, shut up or finish. It looks like we are not concerned with what they have to say. We're just giving them their space because it's the polite thing to do. The reality is that we have to be able to be conscious of what we're doing in our own internal anxiety towards people in building rapport. We have to be selfless. Rapport building is a selfless moment so that we can get into rapport and start that relationship. Once we're in a relationship, anything and everything can happen. Okay? But in rapport building, we have to establish rapport. Rate of speech is a really important one. I want you to think about this. Go into a grocery store and start talking really slowly to somebody. They will be looking for a way to exit. And then likewise, like, talk really fast. And they'll also, like, so there's something about like really understanding and matching their rate of speech. And many of you, if I slow down my rate of speech and we begin to have the rest of this class a little bit slower, a little bit more in tune, if I thought more about what I was going to say next, if I really looked at getting this information out to you, many of you right now are even stressing out because I'm giving you an example. It is a lot. Rapport is a lot. Rate of speech is a big piece to the puzzle. And then honestly, a lot of people will classify that salesperson with a really fast, swindly talking individual. So you've got to be able to understand, how do I match somebody? It's not even about my rate of speech and its interpretation from the world. It's really the individual. I'm in a one-to-one relationship with the person across from me. How can I mirror and match them so that we can be on common ground? Okay. Volume of speech is a big deal too. Loud talkers, quiet talkers, you need to speak up. If somebody's sitting across from you that's a high D personality that speaks loud and your S personality speaks quietly, y'all may lose each other. So you've got to be able to get in tune. Keyword tracking is a big deal. If you hear something that they're using over and over and over again, start repeating it. Start regurgitating that. Now, obviously, don't make it weird, but you've got to be able to find a way to say the words that they're saying and how they're saying it. One of the biggest things on this, and I used to listen to people do these presentations with buyers, and I would, as training them, they would walk into a room and the buyer might say, oh, well, this is the foyer, and the agent may go, refer to it as whatever they would call it. It's like, well, this is a foyer. I was like, well, this is a beautiful entryway. It's like, if they're calling it a foyer, you call it a foyer. If they're calling it a driveway, you call it a driveway. If it's a garage, it's a garage. If they call it a porte-cochere, you call it a porte-cochere. If they call whatever it is that they call it, their terminology, right or wrong, is their understanding, and you're wanting to be in tune with them as the advocate, then you need to be in their level, in their language. Okay. Body language is a big deal. 7% words, 38% tonality, and 55% body language. This is the way people interpret. They are going to get the information from you. 7% is words, 38% is tonality, 55% is body language. So our connectivity, we need to be stewards of body language. We need to understand and be educating ourselves on body language. What is the most inviting space? What is the least inviting space? What are they doing? How are they doing it? Can I mirror and match them in a way, even in body language, that doesn't make it look too terrible? One of the really interesting things is those who you are in most rapport with, and I want you to think about that today, consciously think about that. If I'm sitting across from somebody that I love and trust, and they were to cross their arms, I might do the same exact thing. They cross their legs. You'll find yourself, people who you're already in rapport with, you copy the body language in a real interesting way. It's fun to watch. Sit in a crowded room and watch the people who you can tell who are in rapport and out of rapport, just simply based off of their body language. It's really interesting. And so in this space, if 55% is body language, we have to open ourselves up. We have to be able to take a deep breath, to be able to be relaxed, and to go into our space as a sales professional without tension, without any of the anxiety that we really feel in those spaces, and find the ways in which you can mindset, be in the right place, and use body language to your advantage. Okay. All right, guys, putting these things into role play. Pause here, do whatever you need to do. In a workshop, I would have you do these things, but I want you to think about, find somebody who you can role play with and ask questions and figure out if you can identify where their DISC personality profile is and where their VAK is. So what is their learning profile, visual, audio, or kinesthetic? And then practice rate of speech with them. This is things that you should be doing if you want to get good at and be the sales professional. You really should be practicing these things, okay? So now we're going to move into a couple things with language basics, and I am going to fly through this. I am not the expert in this space. I am just bringing you information so that then you can start putting it into practice. This is a thing where once you know it, it's just about practice. And the way that you practice language basics, the easiest first is to be able to start crafting sentences, write things out. The second thing is to role play, say things out loud. And then the next thing is to real play. And the way you do that is to take your version of what you need to do and apply it somewhere. If you know a friend who wants to do something, they may be aware that you're role playing with them, but they have a real situation, and you're going to go through how you have that conversation to help them understand and help you understand how do these two things mesh, and how do I get better at delivering the information that I want to deliver, asking questions that I want, and making sure that I'm in tune to what the needs are so I can be that advocate again. Going back to the whole process of programming leads to thinking, leads to feeling, leads to action, leads to results. And again, that cycle starts over. Okay, so the very first thing we're going to start with is embedded commands. And embedded commands are simply words or phrases enclosed or embedded within a larger context. Series of words that stand alone to make a command, and they operate below a person's level of awareness. So embedded commands are they're really little phrases that are laced into our conversations that are telling people the direction for which we need them to go, and or from their needs analysis, understanding what they want, making sure the path is laid out for them to go in that direction. And so essentially, here's a list of some words. It's feel good, reduce your price, buy now, do it today, get excited, sign the contract, trust me, set an appointment, hire me, accept the offer, price your home to sell. And the way that you would find these things in a sentence, like let's take hire me. It's like if you were on a phone or if you're in a conversation, you would probably say, the reason why a lot of consumers choose to hire me is because of X, Y, and Z. Well, what I was saying was just like creating this Yelp kind of review moment. But really the underlying phrase that really was captured in there, if I time it right and I say it right, is going to be, they heard hire me. I am embedding a command that I want them to hire me. If I know that this person is a little bit nervous, I'm going to say, I think it's time to get excited about the process of searching for a home. It can really be a lot of fun. I chose an easy space to be able to toss in the idea of be excited, because there may be a lot of nervousness that they got to get around, and their next step may be more willing to go see and get involved in homes. It's a subconscious level. There's some better examples, obviously, and I'm going to list some of these right here for you. And again, these examples are for real estate purposes. So if you are in a different industry, how can you take this and put it into your world for your information, for your learning? When would you like to meet to list your home? Does 4 p.m. this afternoon work, or is 5 p.m. better? I'm not going, when do you want to have a meeting? I'm going to say, when do you want to meet with me to list your home? I'm embedding in the idea that I want them to list their home with me, and their subconscious are feeling that, but they're just looking at it as an appointment. It feels like an appointment, but I'm embedding that I want to be their listing agent. We haven't had much interest in your home since it's been listed. Do you think we should reduce the price now so that you can move by spring? I'm embedding I'm not asking, what do you think we should do? I'm embedding what I know is going to be the right step in the journey. It's the advocacy process. They could easily answer in whatever way they want, but then now my objections that are coming out of this question are going to be a lot easier for me to handle and understand where they're sitting. If I had asked just an opinion question without a direction, opinions without direction, then it could really open up into a million different pathways and a million different boxes that then now we've got to figure out how to backpedal and fix this. Okay. And I appreciate you guys bearing with me. I know this is a lot of content, a lot of information, and yet, as you can tell, it's very pertinent in our life, and especially as a sales professional. Okay. Tie downs. Tie downs are a really important piece to the puzzle as well. It gets us the ability to take temperature, and that's exactly what the slide's saying. So tie downs are, they allow us to take the temperature of our prospect. It gives us the moment to hear and see where are they at. So if I get into a space where I go to a close and I have a tie down statement or something like that is what you want, right? If they answer no, well, then I've missed the mark somewhere. But in reality, if I'm asking that question that's moving them in a direction, they may say yes and be more willing to take the next step in the conversation. We're reducing fear and helping them understand the process. We're advocating for what they want because we spent the time doing a proper needs analysis with them. Why? So the tie downs are very effective on a sales process to gain agreement. It gets you into agreement. We want to hear as many yeses as possible in our sales presentation or our listing consultation or our moment of clarification, whatever you want to say. Okay. So examples of some of the tie downs. Isn't that what you want? Wouldn't you / it? Couldn't we / it? Can you see how that works? Don't you think? Aren't they / we? Don't you agree? I don't need to read all these. I think you can read. You can even pause and copy and paste this if you want. But these are great tie downs. If you're in your listing presentation and you don't have tie down questions, that's immediately one of the most simple things that you can do because it gets you into a space of, again, understanding, are they ready? What's the temperature of this process in this conversation? It clues me in when they're ready for the close. If I can tell they're not ready for the close, I got to make sure I keep opening it up. I need to keep asking more questions and make sure they're feeling comfortable with the process. And then again, it gets me in agreement. So I keep moving that agreement page forward. Okay. Again, going to blow through these things. Those are tie downs. And that's a simple process of knowing, like, what do I need to do and how do I need to do this? Tie downs really help you get into that space. So I'm going to just read a couple of these for you. So tie down statements and embedded commands. Let's move your appointment up by a week. You do want your equity, right? You don't want to end up chasing the market, do you? You do want the most money possible, right? The strategy I presented to you creates an undeniable results my team gets. Can you see that? They're not a opinion question. They're a yes or no question that's really influenced by really the direction that we want. Don't ask the question you want the answer to, but when you frame it the right way, it is going to be an agreement to the strategies I've presented to you. Creates an undesirable results my team gets, right? If that is actually what I've created, then the answer is going to be yes. If I haven't crafted that, then the answer is going to be curious. I don't know, maybe, sure. If everybody ever answers sure, then there's a challenge. So you've got to make sure that what you're doing and you're presenting this in the language that is coming, it's actually in a trail, right? You've got to create the pathway for it. Tie down statements are a really big deal. You can go and learn a lot of this. Actually, I know that Keller Williams does a language of sales, which is where I get a lot of this information. I get it from Language of Sales, a book called The Like Switch is another piece that I usually bring into the equation. I'm going through the Never Split the Difference book, and there's a lot of stuff in there for that. And then there's a few master classes that I've been a part of where this is all a very common understanding of how we use our language to move conversations forward, to be advocates for people. Now, if you're using this for wrong, like in my office, shame on you, and I'll cut you loose in a heartbeat. If you use this for your own gain, then you're a terrible salesperson. But if you're using this to help people move along in the journey and help and open up the pathway for them, and you're really having that advocate conversation, kudos to you. This is really interesting. This is necessary. It's just like this. If I were to walk into a store and I need a pair of pants, and I walk into the store and I'm like, hey guys, need a pair of pants. They're going to point me in the pants direction. They're going to probably talk to me about pants. But most of us go in and we walk in and there's somebody sitting there and they go, hey, can I help you with anything? We go, no, I'm okay, just looking. Well, that's a lie. I'm not just looking. I need a pair of pants. You could have pointed me in the direction of the pants. So asking the right question gets them moving in the direction of really where they want to be if we've done a true needs analysis. Having conversation that directs them in the right path. If I walked in and somebody says, what can I help you with today? I can't say nothing, or I could say nothing if I want to be a jerk. And so that's kind of that mid-level question. But if I walk in and I said, what are you looking for today? Well, if I say I'm just looking, well, it's like, awesome. Well, can I point you in the direction of what you're looking for? So I can keep asking the right question that gets them moving in the direction where they need to go, the pants conversation, right? So if I'm doing these things with somebody who is having a lot of fear, anxiety, and really a very emotional point, if they're buying or selling real estate, or if they're having a high sales purchase, they're going to be a little bit cautious of everything. So it's just our ability to use language in the proper way to help move the process forward. And I hope this makes sense to you guys. So we got our tie downs and our embedded commands. A couple of the embedded commands. After you sign the contract, I will immediately go back to my office and begin looking for the buyer of your home. Fair enough? See, I'm like, again, it's a little bit of a sentence that's crafted just for real estate, but you follow the idea of the language basic side of thing. Once you reduce your price, we will open up the market to a new set of buyers, increasing the likelihood of an offer. That's the goal, correct? So I've got them, what they're agreeing with was the last statement that was made, which was they want to increase the likelihood of the offer. But they also have to agree with the whole statement, which has inside of it, reduce your price. Once you reduce your price, we will open up the market to a new set of buyers, increasing the likelihood of an offer. That's the goal, correct? It is their goal to reduce and so now we've got them into a correct mindset. I've adjusted their thinking to move into a place of price reduction. And then we can open up the door of that conversation. If I just ask them like, hey, do you want to reduce the price? Their answer is going to be no, that nobody really wants to reduce the price. But if I know their needs analysis and I know that the main goal that they want is to be able to get an offer, I do want to increase the likelihood of an offer. Yes, I do want that. But Randy, I really don't want to reduce the price. What are our options? Well, now we can have the right conversation versus we have the backpedal conversation when we ask the wrong questions or don't have the tie downs or the embedded commands. Again, this is all a practice thing. You do this by writing sentences. You could probably even Google. I've never done this, but you could Google embedded commands and see if there's a big list out there somewhere. I guarantee you somebody has one. You can Google tie down questions and see where they're at. And then go in my listing presentation. At what point in the dialogue do I need to be adding in embedded commands or tie down questions so that I can gauge the process through the whole thing? I might be able to close within the first few sentences, and yet I'm going through crafting this whole story and dialogue to try and get them to, at the end of the day, go, yes. They might say yes 3 minutes into the deal. You've got to be able to understand this is a great way to gauge those things, okay? Oh, all right, so closing. I want you to understand that closing is simply a call to action. It's creating a call to action. Every appointment should end in a closing or another appointment. So I close into what's next. If I call you and I'm prospecting, you tell me to go set myself on fire. I mean, oh, well, sure. Once I do that, can I call you back and let you know how it went? Right? I don't know, that's a little bit extreme, a little bit hokey as an example. But yet everything that we do can end. Hey, man, I'm not ready to buy or sell in another year. Man, I can understand that completely. Would it be okay if I just take a gauge? I find that most people's timelines end up being sooner rather than later. May I call you back in, June and see where we're at in this process? Yeah, absolutely. Give me a call in June. I'd love that. When I close them to June, I need to do a little bit more. I'm just giving you a very simple solution, a really quick action or activity in the closing process. But most of us don't even do that. We leave our closing door wide open. And then somebody else comes in and swoops in and goes, well, hey, Mo, why don't I just come take you out to lunch and show you exactly what I'm talking about? It's like, well, sure, I like lunch. We've got to be able to close the next thing. So every appointment should end in a contract or another appointment. And that's on the spot. And if you're showing houses, right, this is another real estate example. If I'm showing houses and we showed 5 houses and we closed the door to the last one and we're not writing a contract that day, I need to say, okay, cool. So it looks like Thursdays at 2 p.m. because that's where we're seeing today was the best case scenario for you. So this coming up Thursday at 2 p.m., we're going to go look at some more houses. Well, Randy, we don't have any more houses that we know. Well, I know that's our goal between now and then. So is it okay to put you on the calendar for Thursday at 2? The answer is yes. Next steps to require a personal follow-up. So that can be a close. Hey, I know that we got a chance to be able to do this. My next steps is to do A, B, and C. Your next steps are to do D, E, and F. Can we come back together on Monday? Can I connect with you on text on Tuesday? Why don't you text me? What? There's always a next step to personal follow-up. I should be telling them like, hey, I'm going to give you a call on Tuesday at 10. Well, on Tuesday at 10, I better call. And that's the easy way. It's like, awesome. Well, I'll tell you what. I can tell you're agitated. I'm going to give you a call on Tuesday at 10. And then call them on Tuesday at 10. Everything should close into the next activity. It's a simple create a call to action. And in our world, we're always, if we're a salesperson, we're always going to have homework to do on our end. So what homework are you doing on your end to make sure that they're connected to what's happening? I can end every single consultation or conversation with something that I need to do for homework that would bring value back into their world. Regardless of where the sale is at, I can always do some more homework. I do this all the time. You will always see me writing notes, and at the end of the thing, I was like, okay, so I obviously need to get you some more information on this. I'll tell you what I'm going to do is that by the end of the day, you're going to get an email from me, and I'll give you a call in the morning at about 9 a.m. so that we can discuss what this means. Is that okay? Yes. So now we're going to continue to close what's happening, right? Now there's some closing skills that we can open up, but the reality is that if we're having a basics conversation, which is what we're doing today, then we need to understand the basics for personalities. We need to understand the basics for the learning styles. We need to understand the basics for some language that would help us. We need to understand basics for closing. So this is not an expert conversation. This is a basics conversation. So you can do a lot more. And any critics out there watching going, well, this isn't really what you do to do better, to be better at this. I understand that. There's a lot of great ways that we can do. The reality is that most of us need to just have that first basic step, which is just to close and simply close to next. What's the next thing that you want to happen in this process? Okay, what's the next best step? And that doesn't necessarily mean signing a contract. It could be a text, an email. So what does it look like? How do I want to move them forward? The easiest way to do this is that you have homework. Send them your homework when you're done. Okay? Awesome. So on the putting this into practice, guys, and you can press pause. I'm going to read this to you. Role play with a partner to create 3 sentences about real estate using embedded commands. So if you're not in real estate, role play using embedded commands. Find a role play partner. The people who separate themselves as real estate agents do this. They practice role play. They do this all the time. Role play with a partner about creating 3 sentences about real estate using tie downs. So practice your tie downs. And then individual play, write more sentences and read them out loud. This right here is the kicker. Write more sentences and read them out loud. Go get you a journal if you're on an iPad and just start writing these things out. Write more sentences and read them out loud. One more time. It's the last time I'll say it. Write more sentences and read them out loud. Get you a journal and start writing your sentences. Write great sentences. Bring in some embedded commands. Bring in some of those tie downs and see if your language doesn't begin to adjust. And you'll find yourself actually speaking much more clearly as a real estate professional. So, intro to DISC, personality profiles, rapport, and language basics. Guys, I know that we ran through this really fast. I know that it's a lot of information. My hope is that you might be able to find some time to rewatch this. And yet, at the end of the day, if we only grab 1 or 2 things from this, what would it be? And what can you immediately put into your business? My goal is to always bring simplified education, simplified training that I can grab 1 or 2 things and I can immediately put them into process. So what's the one thing today that you will go and you'll put into process for your business so that you can create that life by design, to create that space where you are really having that meaningful life? I think a sales career is an absolutely beautiful thing. And to me, it's one of the highest rated professionals. And so my hope is that you would always move in the space to create your own version of being that best practices, best sales professional, that advocate. And really one of the ways that we can do that is to understand how we create rapport and get people in movement on their journey. We can be the sage that helps them understand that they're the hero and watch their story unfold. How beautiful is it that we get to be part of people's journeys as a sales professional? That's one of the most coolest things. I don't even know if that's grammatically correct. To me, for me being a sales professional. I've been able to see a lot of really awesome things in my career that I would have never been able to be a part of. And it's because I'm a salesperson helping people on their journey to create a meaningful space for their own. So, all right, guys, that's what I have today. I got a couple of minutes, right? If you have any questions, I'll give just a second or two to see anything pop up here in the chat. You're welcome to send any questions in. I know we've got a couple people watching now. So if you had questions or comments, by all means, write them in there. Even if you had something that today's a big aha, something that you learned that you're like, hey, this was new to me that I can put into my business. I'd love to hear or see some of those things as well. It's just good to be the guy sitting on this side of the camera to know that like this is landing and it's hitting in your world. So I'd love to see a couple things just kind of pop up there into the comments, and then we can for sure be done and go have an amazing day. It's beautiful outside. My family just went exploring. My grandparents have 2 acres of land, and so they always go exploring, and so they'll just go walk the land and pick up pine cones and see bugs and get sweaty and dirty, and it's awesome. So go be outside at some point today. Anybody got anything they want to share though before we hang up? Randy. All right. Well, I appreciate you guys very, very much. Again, if there's ever anything that I can do, there it's scrolling right there. Catch it there. mvv@randyolive.com. Click subscribe. You can always follow us on Instagram or Facebook as well. And anything that we have, we'll make sure that these live classes are pre-scheduled so that you can connect to it and get it on your calendar. And as we continue to bring content, let me know what you need in your world, and I'm happy to make sure that I can bring that to you. So y'all are awesome. Thank you so much. Go be amazing.